We are looking at factoring trinomials when a is equal to 1, practice page. So in our first problem, x squared minus 8x plus 15, we need to go back and look at our a value times our c value and figure out what that is. So a is the number in front of x squared, so that's 1, and c is our constant, so 1 times 15 equals 15. And then we're going to look at all the factors of 15. So 1 and 15, 2 doesn't go into 15, but 3 does, 3 and 5. And then what we have to look at is, of these factors, 1 and 15, 3 and 5, which ones add up to a negative 8? And that's our b value. So they have to add up to my negative 8. What we need to look at also is we have to multiply to get negative 15. So that would either be a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. And since our b value is a negative 8, there's no way to add up two positives to get a negative. So we know that the signs have to be negative and negative. So it's either a negative 1 and negative 15, or it's a negative 3 and a negative 5. So if we add negative 1 and negative 15, we get negative 16, which is definitely not negative 8. So we know that we have negative 3 and negative 5. Multiply to get 15 and add to get negative 8. So then we can go back and fill in our box. So we have x squared, and then we know that negative 8x splits into a negative 3x and a negative 5x. And then our constant is plus 15. And then we just go back to what we did in grouping. So between x squared and negative 3x, we know we can divide by x. Negative 5x and positive 15, we can divide by a negative 5 because this is negative. And then between x squared and negative 5x, we have an x in common. And between negative 3x and positive 15, we have a 3, and then it is negative. So factored, we get x minus 5 and x minus 3. So let's look at letter B. We know our a is 1 and our c is negative 24, so when we have a times c, we have 1 times negative 24, which is a negative 24. And then we're looking at all the factors that make 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And we also know that those multiply to get 24, but we need to add them to get the b value, which in our case is a positive 10. So let's go back and look at the signs of the numbers. So we have negative 24, we have to multiply to get that, so a positive times a negative would give us a negative 24. And then we're going to look at here in the middle the b value. That tells us which number has to be bigger. Well, it's a plus, so our positive number has to be bigger. So let's go and fill that in. So we have a positive 12 and a negative 1, and a positive 12, or a positive 24 and a negative 1, positive 12 and a negative 2, a positive 8 and a negative 3, a positive 6 and a negative 4. And then we're going to go back and look. Which of those add up to a positive 10? Well, that would be a positive 12 and a negative 2. Make 10. So let's fill in the box. So we have x squared, and then 10x splits into negative 2x plus 12x, and then our constant is negative 24. So x squared and negative 2x have an x in common. 12 and 24 have 12 in common, and it's a positive. Between x squared and positive 12x, we have an x in common. Between negative 2 and negative 24, we have a 2, and it's negative. So our factors are x plus 12 and x minus 2. In letter C, we're going to do it all again. So we have a times c. We know a is 1. 1 times c is negative, times negative 56. Gives us negative 56. And so let's factor that. 1, 56, 2, and 28. 3, that doesn't go into it. 4, so we have 4 and 14. 5 doesn't, 6 doesn't, 7 does, times 8. We also know that we have to add them up to get b, which is a -1. So let's go back and look at our signs. The sign of our 56 is negative, so we know that we have to have a positive times a negative to multiply to get a negative. And here in the middle we have -1, so that means the negative has to be bigger. So let's go back. The negative number has to be bigger, so all these bigger numbers are negative, and then all the smaller numbers are positive. And then we're going to look through and see which ones add up to a -1. Well, 7 and -8. So let's fill in the box. We have x squared, positive 7x, -8x. That adds up to -1 in the middle. And then we have -56. So let's look at what's common. X squared and 7x is x. -8x and -56 is 8, and then our sign is negative. And between x squared and -8x is x. Between 7x and -56 is 7, and it has to be positive. So then our factors are x minus 8 and x plus 7. Let's go ahead and look at D. We have 1, so that's A. So we have A times C. A is 1, C is positive 8. 1 times 8 is 8, so factors of that are 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. And we know that they have to add up to a -6. And that's our B. So let's look at the signs. We have a positive 8, so that either needs a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. So what do we look at? We look at our B value. It's negative, so it has to be negative times a negative. So over here, this is -1 and -8, or -2 and -4. Which of those add up to this -6? Well, -2 and -4. So let's fill it in. X squared, and we have -2x and -4x. Those add up to -6x. And then our constant is positive 8. So between x squared and -2x we have an x. Between -4x and 8 we have a 4. And then because this is negative, that's negative. Between x squared and -4x we have an x. Between -2x and 8 we have a -2. So then our factors become x minus 4 and x minus 2. Let's go ahead and look at E and F. We have A is 1 and C is -100, so we have A times C equals 1 times -100, so we get -100. Factors of -100, so we have 1 and 100, 2 and 50, 3, we have 4 and 25, 5 and 20, and then we have 10 and 10. And then we got to look at what adds up to a positive 48. And that's our B right here. Well, let's look at the signs. We have -100, so that's a positive times a negative. And our 48 is a positive, so positive is bigger. So all the bigger numbers are positive, 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 positive. Oops. And then all our smaller numbers are negative. So which of those add up to 48? Well, positive 50 minus 2 is 48. So those become our diagonals. So if we fill it in, x squared minus 2x plus 50x, because that's 50 minus 2 is 48x, minus 100 is our constant. X squared into -2x is x divided by 50 here, and that's a positive 50. And then we're going to look at x squared and 50x, well that's x, -2x and 100 is 2, and then because this is negative, so is this. So it's x plus 50 times x minus 2. Alright, for our last one, we have 1x squared plus 3, so we have a times c equals 1 times 3, and that equals 3, and the factors of 3 are 1 and 3. And we have to add our factors up and get 4 positive. That's our B. So let's see. If we have a positive 3, we need a positive times a positive, or a negative times a negative. The 4 is positive, so it's positive, positive, so this is plus, plus. Let's fill in the box. So we have x squared plus 1x plus 3x plus our constant, which was 3. So between x squared and 1x is x, between 3x and 3 is 3, and because this is positive, this is positive. And then between x squared and 3x is x, between 1x and 3 is 1, and because this is positive, this is positive. So our factors are x plus 3 and x plus 1.